But I don't care about Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't care about that racist judge. And I don't care about how up that jury must be.
If you look at the Rittenhouse case, he crossed state lines. His mama drove him across state lines, dropped him off so that he could help the cops or do whatever he thought he was doing. And the only person who fired shots that night was Rittenhouse.
So let's look at the lies the media told about the Kyle Rittenhouse case. My name is Nathan Laurie. If you are new here, we talk about the law and the facts. If you're about that life, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. So these are the lies and mistruths that I want to see if I can help people overcome for those who don't understand what happened in the Rittenhouse case and are so shocked at the fact that he was found not guilty. Now, check it out. Let's go through a quick list of 10 things that the media has been lying about when it comes to Kyle Rittenhouse. Claim number 1, Kyle was not from Kenosha, it was not his community, and he was an outsider.
Rittenhouse crossed state lines into a community that was not his. You know, you've got this young white kid defending the community that he's not even from.
So to overcome this lie, let me let you hear Kyle's trial testimony under oath about his connections to the city of Kenosha.
What's your father's name?
Michael Rittenhouse.
Back on August 25th of 2020, where did he reside?
He lived in Kenosha, in the city of Kenosha, in the apartments behind the Pick and Save on 50th. On 50.
Do you have any other family that's from Kenosha?
Yes.
What?
My grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, and cousins all live in the city of Kenosha.
On August 25th of 2020, where were you employed?
I was furloughed at the YMCA in Lindenhurst, Illinois because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I was working at the Recplex in Pleasant Prairie.
Okay. Recplex here in Kenosha County?
Yes.
So now you know, Kyle lived there, Kyle worked there, Kyle's father lived there, his aunt lived there, his friends lived there. Matter of fact, he stayed the night at a friend's house in Kenosha before attending the protest the next day. So when the media tells you things like this,
you know, you've got this young white kid defending the community that he's not even from.
It's obviously a lie. This was Kyle's community. Not only did he work there, not only did his family live there, not only did his friends live there, he was an active member in this community. Now, whenever you hear people talking about Kyle not being from the community, the one thing they bring up is that Kyle crossed state lines. You may have heard this a lot. He crossed state lines, he crossed state lines. Here are a couple of clips of people just continuously hammering that point on how he crossed state lines. Check it out.
Who crossed state lines. He drove from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, again, he drove from Illinois to Wisconsin. It's not like he was in his front yard and he was approached by a group of individuals who posed an imminent threat to his life. He drove across state lines in a state that he doesn't even live in, and then he crossed state lines with it. He crossed state lines, meaning he traveled across state lines. He traveled there from out of state, who again, traveled across state lines.
Like they were trying to not paint him. He was a kid that took a gun across state lines and went and did what he did.
Across state lines, driving across state borders. He's driving across state lines.
Across the state line, across state lines.
Cross state lines.
Across state lines.
If you look at the Rittenhouse case, he crossed state lines.
Drives up to events.
Across state lines.
Came across state lines.
Kyle Rittenhouse, who traveled across state lines.
From out of state, out of his own state.
Came across state borders. Whenever you have a situation where a 17-year-old is crossing state lines,
white teenager.
He crosses a state line, drives 30 minutes into Kenosha.
Remember, he came across the line.
He crossed state lines.
Cross state lines.
Across state lines.
He crossed state lines.
Kyle Rittenhouse, who crossed state lines.
Came across
state lines.
Cross state lines.
He went across state lines.
Cross state lines.
Cross state lines.
And cross state lines.
A 17-year-old kid from out of state.
He makes all
cross state lines.
Cross state lines.
Cross state lines.
Across state lines.
Cross state lines. Went over state lines, drove across state lines. He drove across state, had his mother drive him across state lines from out of state.
Say the line, Bart.
The teenager traveled across state lines.
Carl Rittenhouse traveled from his home in Illinois across the state line to Wisconsin.
Drove to a different state. Drives up to the state. Again, drove across state line.
So, just so everyone understands, crossing state lines is not illegal in the United States. People do it all the time. For instance, I live in what's known as the tri-state area, and millions of people cross state lines every day to work in different states. Like I used to cross state lines to go to New Jersey and do some work. People cross New Jersey every day to come work in New York. Matter of fact, when I was a faculty member at a law school, a lot of the professors traveled from New Jersey to New York to work here in New York. They were crossing state lines. So this is not something that is illegal to cross state lines. And the fact that Kyle actually lived like 10 minutes away from Kenosha, closer than, let's say, Gage Grosskreutz, who lives something like 30 minutes away from Kenosha. So, this crossing state lines bit is something to make you believe that Kyle was some invading force from like Texas or California being bussed in to help people, shoot up a Black Lives Matter rally. But that is not the case. And the media should really, really, really be more careful when trying to create a narrative based on crossing state lines. Number 2, Kyle crossed state lines with a gun and his mom drove him. Now, this claim has been made by countless people in the media. So first, let's hear trial testimony on how Kyle got there.
Okay.
You had spent the night at Dominic Black's house, is that right?
Yes.
And you indicated that you had worked at the Recplex the night before, is that right?
The 24th, correct.
Okay. And you worked until about 7 p.m.?
I couldn't give you an exact time, but I'd say I got off around between 6 and 7. I don't recall. It's been a while.
And then you drove your car over to Dominic's house?
Yes.
Okay, so the rest of the time it seems like you're being driven around in Mr. Black's car. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Why did you guys use his instead of yours, if you know?
At the time I didn't have a driver's license, and I would drive just to get to work and sometimes to go to Dominic's dad's house.
So even though you didn't have a driver's license, you drove from your home in Antioch to the Recplex to work that day?
Yes, to be able to get to work.
And then after work, you drove without a driver's license to Dominic Black's house?
Yes.
So remember, the trial came out. He drove himself. He didn't have a license. So it's clear, right, how Kyle got there. His mama didn't drive him across state lines. He didn't take the gun across state lines. The gun was actually already there. So we have all this.
Previously, it was reported that he had obtained the gun in Illinois and then crossed state lines into Wisconsin with that illegal gun. Now it turns out, based on an investigation, that there was an individual who sold the gun to Kyle Rittenhouse in Wisconsin. So he did not cross state lines with an illegal gun.
But you would suspect that after the trial, news media organizations would correct themselves. But here they are after the trial, spreading the same lie.
Here's a 17-year-old who came across state lines with a firearm that he purchased illegally, driven by his mother.
If you look at the Rittenhouse case, he crossed state lines. His mama drove him.
It's like I can't go and protest now without worrying that some nutcase is going to have a gun, cross the state line, and come and shoot me. That's the problem.
Seeing today a lot of people using that cover to say, well, self-defense is not white supremacy. You're right. Self-defense on its face is not white supremacy. But traveling across state lines with an AR-15 to intimidate people is absolutely white supremacy.
Now, to make sure you understand that this was a lie, what they're saying are lies, even after the evidence was induced, after the trial was over, after they knew that these things were lies. Here's TYT correcting it. TYT, the Young Turks, found out that, oh my God, this is such a bad lie that we got to correct it. Here's their correction on it.
Previously, it was reported that he had obtained the gun in Illinois and then crossed state lines into Wisconsin with that illegal gun. Now it turns out, based on an investigation, that there was an individual who sold the gun to Kyle Rittenhouse in Wisconsin. So he did not cross state lines with an illegal gun.
I know. It's insane that news media organizations, or quote, people who are trying to give you their view on a particular topic, don't know that they're spreading lies. Or they probably do and don't care. Number 3, Kyle had an illegal gun. Let's just deal with the facts first. For all these claims, I like to deal with the facts first. First, the gun charge was dropped by the court because Kyle's gun wasn't illegal. Matter of fact, here's the prosecution admitting that the gun was legal, and then the judge saying, okay, well, I'm going to drop the charge since the gun is a legal weapon.
Is the firearm here now?
Yes.
We can either measure it, or you can stipulate that it does not meet what I've stated are the requirements. And if it is out of compliance, if the barrel length is less than 60 inches, or an overall length less than 26 inches, then I'll deny the motion. If it does not meet those specifications, then this defense motion will be granted.
We are not disputing that the barrel length is appropriate.
Isn't legal?
It is not a short-barreled shotgun or a short-barreled rifle. Yes.
Either by barrel or by overall length?
Correct.
All right, and then count 6 is dismissed.
To show you how legal this gun is in Wisconsin, in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Here's a black father with his 16-year-old daughter carrying the gun outside the courtroom during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Before the trial, you may say, okay, well, he had an illegal gun. But after the trial, do you think they're going to say Kyle still had an illegal gun, even though the prosecution admitted the gun was legal? No, right? It's impossible.
The fact that this kid illegally carrying a gun, he was 17 years old. He walks up to cops who are like, yeah, it's over. Yeah, and walks up to cops with I think Republicans can agree with this too. I mean, unless they just want to lie to themselves. If an underage black kid with an AR-15 was hanging around his neck and he walks up to police officers, I think that's the end of the story right there. They ask him for his ID. He's underage. He gets arrested.
This person came outside of his community, armed himself with a legal weapon, and shot 2 people in the street.
Throwing out the misdemeanor gun charge, really? He threw it out. Reading the statutes, not clear to me how that stands. But what it says to the jury, essentially the jury knows there was an illegal weapons charge, and they know the judge took it away.
I know. MSNBC is like full of lies. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. Even after the trial testimony, they're still saying these stuff. Number 4, Kyle only shot black people. Now, I don't know where this lie came from. I don't know where it originated. But any sane person would know that Kyle only shot white people. Not to say that that's any better or worse than shooting black people, but the media was pushing this narrative that Kyle shot black people. Now, I understand it was at a Black Lives Matter rally, but that doesn't mean he shot black people. Matter of fact, the only people he shot was actually these guys who were white. Here's an example from Blue Checkmark on Twitter. Check it out. Alex Cross says, Kyle Rittenhouse is so lucky that he's white and only killed black people. I'm sorry, guys, but the judge is going to let this guy walk free. Crazy. That's before the trial. And then after the trial, here's The Independent. Rittenhouse cleared of murder after shooting dead 2 Black Lives Matter protesters. Full story, teenager who shot 3 black men with rifle found not guilty on all charges. What? He didn't shoot black people. What are they talking about? Number 5, Kyle should be convicted because if he was black, he would have been convicted. Oh my God. All right, so let's just hear these claims, which is insane. Listen to these people say this. I didn't even think they would say, but listen to them. Listen.
Sonny, if he were black, would he be free now?
No, he wouldn't be alive now.
You and I both know, had this person been African-American or Latino, he would be behind bars tonight.
But if it was a young black teenager with an AR-15 at a MAGA rally, even with the laws on the books in Wisconsin, as they are, the law would not have applied equally at all. You know as well as I know, if that was a black teenager, even with the self-defense laws on the books in Wisconsin, that young man would probably be dead or he would be going to prison right now.
All right, so they've discussed, so you've heard that claim, which I think is insane. But let's test this out, right? Let's say a black guy, let's call him Andrew Coffey, right? And let's say he's in a deep southern state like Florida. Let's say he gets in a shootout with cops, people die, and he claims self-defense. Do you think in this racist country that we live in that he would be found not guilty on the same day Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty? Do you think that's possible? He's black. Well, that's exactly what happened. Yes, a black man who had a shootout with the cops where people died claimed self-defense and was found not guilty. Roll a clip.
This man accused and charged with shooting at deputies during an early morning drug raid in his home back in 2017 was found not guilty of murder and attempted murder, but was found guilty of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. After a trial spanning multiple weeks, the jury reached their verdicts this afternoon in the trial of Andrew Coffey IV.
Coffey's defense attorneys reacting to the verdict.
I'm exceptionally happy with the jury's verdict, and they applied the law properly, and they came back with verdicts that were just, that he was in a self-defense mode, that he was protecting himself, and that he did not know that these were officers outside. So I think he's vindicated from that standpoint.
All right, so we've been through the first 5 claims that the media said about the Rittenhouse case that were totally false, and we still got 5 more to go. So in part 2, we'll go over 6 through 10, and you'll get to decide if the media is telling you the truth about the Rittenhouse case or if they're still lying about the Rittenhouse case. See you in the next one. Peace.